Okay, now we get to continue with my part 2 of my part 2. And to kick things off, we're going to take a look at Darkseid. So for my first choice, I chose a 1997 Freightliner. A very big truck, but at the same time it also felt very bland. So I had to think of something a little bit more edgier. And I couldn't think of anything more edgier than the truck from the movie Black Dog, which in this case happens to be a very big Peterbilt. Now, this was going to be my final choice, but then I realized something. It looks too much like the truck from Twisted Metal Black. Now you probably ask yourself, well, what's the big deal? Well, the thing is, I kind of want to use ideas that haven't been done before. So, looking elsewhere, I finally decided on the 2005 Mack semi-truck. It's big, it's bold, it definitely looks like something Darkseid would drive. Coming up next, Hammerhead. Now for Hammerhead, this was really kind of a hard decision because I know a thing or two about monster trucks, so it wasn't easy. So, for my first choice for Hammerhead, I looked to the movie Rolling Vengeance, about a guy who builds a monster truck out of scrap iron. Let's just say if Mad Max had a monster truck, it'd probably look something like this. Another movie that used the same idea was called Monster Man. Again, a monster truck just built from scratch. Now, as much as I like the idea of a monster truck just built from scratch, there was just one problem. While it's a good idea, it seems more something that you would find in the game of Twisted Metal Black, not just a regular Twisted Metal game. It felt too dark. But then I remembered the name, Hammerhead. What is that based off of? Well, more than likely it's based off the Hammerhead shark. Now, there's one thing I know about monster trucks, is that in more recent years, you have a lot of trucks based off an animal of some sort, and they put that into the design. The truck known as Bulldozer, although I think it got renamed El Toro Loco, is a good example of this. But again, I hit another snag. While it might be a creative idea, it also felt incredibly stupid. Kind of like Twisted Metal 4 stupid. So for my final choice, I chose Monster Patrol. Technically, it's just a regular Chevrolet pickup with a few add-ons, most notably a spoiler and some flashing lights. This, I feel, will be the best choice for Hammerhead. Now, the last car on the list is Roadkill. Now, in the past, Roadkill's been based off either a Mad Max type inspired car, or just something that looks like it came straight out of a salvage yard. So for Roadkill, I tried to think of some of the worst cars ever made, most notably for rusting or falling apart. And my choices are again kind of odd. My first choice is the Ford Tempo. Every time I see one of these cars, it's usually beat up or has some minor rusting. Actually, now that I think about it, the Tempo really isn't that bad of a car, so I had to look elsewhere. So I finally came up with the worst car I could possibly think of. The Chevy Vega. For those of you who don't know, the Chevy Vega was a small compact car made to replace the aging Corvair, which in my personal opinion is the biggest mistake Chevrolet ever made. The problem with this car is that it had a faulty engine, and on top of that, the car was also very prone to rusting. In fact, a lot of people said that it rusted on the showroom floor. Now, given the Chevy Vega's bad reputation, I thought it'd be a good choice for Roadkill, but then I realized it's a compact car, much too small for Roadkill. He needs to drive something that's more mid-size. So for my final choice for Roadkill ended up probably being my most unusual choice yet. I chose the Chevy Corsica. Now you might say, well, Chevy Corsica? That doesn't really seem all that bad. It just seemed pretty average. I mean, what's so bad about the Corsica? Well, the thing is, every time I see one, this is what it looks like. I swear, every time I see a Corsica, it usually has mismatching panels, the paint is usually faded or peeling off, and in some cases, it has two different taillights. I can't think of anything more junkier than a Corsica. I would even go as far as to say the Corsica is a modern-day Vega. Well, except the Corsica obviously has a better engine, because they're still on the road. Anyway, that pretty much does it for my choices. However, before I end this, I would like to talk about Minion. One thing I didn't do in the last video. As we all know, Minion has always been a SWAT tank. And to be honest, it's the one vehicle I wouldn't change. He should stay the same. And incidentally, I looked up what a modern SWAT tank looks like, and this is what I came up with. What we have here is not a tank, but an armored truck. I don't really consider it a tank. This is nothing more than a bulletproof pickup truck. And it's nowhere near as cool as a tank. A real tank.